Шановні колеги,
Esteemed colleagues, we continue our work, and as of now, we are going to have briefing, and the topic is following: forming coalition on civil code of reforms. This very event is supported by the Center of Reforms, and we invite our speakers. Hello, my name is Mr. Pekar, and I'm a coordinator. I would like to tell you about the aim and structure of our coalition. We know that the society and international donors of Ukraine, foreign governments, assess our reforms as a black box. Something is carried out, something is done, but no one understands what is done. So the aim is to open this black box and to show the international community, our foreign partners, to show the civil society what really happens. What are the reforms implemented, what progress was achieved within every concrete specific direction, and who is to blame if nothing was achieved. As of now, maybe 100 NGOs are engaged in something useful. For example, there are NGOs carrying out monitoring of implementation of the coalition agreement. Also, there are those who monitor the association agreement with the European Union implementation or memorandum with the Monetary Fund. The new country NGO, along with the central executive authority, was engaged in some directions as well. And we decided to join our efforts in order to develop a joint methodology and joint product. The joint monitoring product is essential. So together we may create a product which would be highly respected here in Ukraine and abroad, in order to show the international community and Ukrainian society the detailed, the authentic, based on competence, based on expertise, the face of the reforms. When we say that the reforms are taking place, are not taking place, so we have to just properly assess what is really taking place and to give assessment to every victory and every failure. We are going to have a joint project, but no doubt all the brands, all the NGOs responsible for the trends, for the directions, will give their reports. We've developed the metrics, who must be responsible for what. There are organizations which are going to continue with their monitoring of some strategic document, association agreement, coalition agreement of Ukrainian Parliament, memorandum with the International Monetary Fund. New country is going to be engaged in the regional dimension of monitoring, because we understand that majority of reforms are taking place locally. And not the Minister of Healthcare, but the chief physician will benefit from the reform. The same with the reforms within the taxation, as well as other sectors. We are going to have working groups operating locally. Every organization will be engaged where it has the widest field, the broadest field of expertise. Also, there are participants who will be assessing reforms. We are going to talk about that today as well. As of now, we have 13 NGOs participating in the coalition, including reanimation package of reforms, Vox Ukraine, International Center of Prospective Studies, Stronger Together, NGO, Institute of Media World, Institute of World Policy, European Association of Research, Open University of Maidan, and platform New Country. And I'm giving the floor to Vitaliy Sharlai, expert on public policy analysis, RPR, who will tell you about emergence of this idea. Thank you so much. My name is Vitaliy Sharlai, RPR, and I'm going to tell you how the idea appeared. First of all, when we've started developing our project, the RPR project, we started monitoring what projects on research and informing of the public society, of international community on the existing status of reforms of Ukraine are there. And every of those tools was different. It was not clear to what extent this or that information was truthful or not trustworthy. And I asked myself a question: what may be done in order to more clearly understand the situation, to have a clearer look at those indexes, for them to be understandable for international organization, because we are often asked what is really happening. We do not understand what takes place and how to perceive those changes. So we thought that maybe in opposition to the state, which has the Reform Council and which carries out the assessment of reforms, we decided that we could join our efforts and create this tool, which would include different sides, different visions of the reforms by NGOs, for example, and which would be understandable, clear for the Ukrainian society. We are going to provide some explanations, clarifications to the Ukrainian society, to the international community, to other governments ready to support Ukraine. In general, we had quite a lengthy process. We had negotiations for a month. We wanted to understand weak sides of every organization. Nevertheless, as of now, we have came up to the form of cooperation which satisfies everyone, and appropriately we are ready to work to furtherly create this high-quality product. Now I'm going to give the floor to my colleague Liubov Palyvoda, who will provide you with inside information. Liubov Palyvoda, I represent CCC Creative Center, and I would like to mention not only the sphere we are going to monitor, that is state authority. We emphasize the law on state service within all the levels, but I would like to mention the methodology very often, namely the NGOs are blamed that those monitoring they carry out or the information provided by them is not trustworthy. It is quite possible to develop a joint methodology which would be accessible, understandable for everyone, which may be used by any person, and in fact, it will unite all the members of coalition carrying out this or that monitoring. The coalition is aimed at informing the civil society, donors, the authorities on results and achievements of reforms. That is why it is vital for this methodology to be in place, to be trustworthy, to be reliable, and for people from different levels be able to use it. So we'll start with the development of this joint methodology and we'll use it. Thank you so much. Angela Bochi. I'm from Center for Policy Studies. I'm senior economist. It's very pleasant that we've gathered together at this table and we bespeak reforms. This is quite a popular topic during the recent year. The authorities claim to have a full-fledged process of reforming. There are plenty of initiatives, and demand for a qualitative and quantitative assessment of reforms is quite topical. Besides, there is one more issue. Plenty of state decisions which are viewed to be reforms. They are carried out without public consultations. That is why the issue, to what extent these public consultations are efficient, is open. This creates a gap between understanding of the civil society experts as regards of aims, results, task of the reforms which are being implemented in Ukraine. International Center of Prospective Studies for more than 20 years is engaged in assessment of reforms in Ukraine based on public consultations, and currently we have a project supported by Renaissance Foundation based on public consultations. So to say, we are assessing the tax, the budget reform, deregulation, decentralization, administrative reform, as well as law enforcement agencies reform. And according to these directions, we are planning to have the analytical support, to join formation of methodology, and the main task of ours is to assess and to communicate with the experts, with the authorities and the society, to discuss with them all the state decisions which are viewed as reforms. And I believe today's coalition will become a real driver, real trigger and controller over reforms. Thank you so much. My name is Iryna Kravchuk. I'm chairman of the board at the Ukrainian Evaluation Association. For Ukrainian Evaluation Association, as a member of this coalition, it is important that reforms are viewed not as an eternal process, but as a project which has a definite aim and concrete result which may be measured and assessed. Also, it is important for us that NGOs, that public authorities use the tools of monitoring and assessment, and we are going to develop this methodology for public monitoring of reforms. Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. This is very important for us. I'm Malena Hetmanchuk, Institute of World Policy. We have an external profile. That is why it is very important for us how the international community views reforms and why this very monitoring is important. First of all, we know that support of the European Union, of the West in general, is crucial, is vital for us. And this support, as I see this, is possible only till there is this feeling that today's Ukrainian government has a political will to implement reforms, and the civil society in Ukraine has strength, is powerful in order to monitor those reforms, in order to pressurize the government. As of now, all you know that there was a lobby campaign launched by the Russian Federation in the Western countries, in the EU countries, and the aim is quite simple. It is not a secret for everyone. It is to prove that Ukraine is a failed state. Ukraine will not achieve anything. We have to neutralize that opinion. We have to make the Europe know about all our positive changes. We have to advocate them in order to show that we are capable of implementing reforms. And secondly, why it is vital, as a civil society, we do not want to delegate all the levers of influence to Ukrainian authority just to the international community and to external, so to say, players. We are not tired, we are active, and we are ready to join our efforts to communicate, to coordinate in order to pressurize Ukrainian authorities to implement all those reforms. And also, I invite Dmytro Naumenko from the information campaign Stronger Together, Center of Public Initiative.
Actually, I was a bit late. That's when maybe the one with last one to speak here. I would like to emphasize that one of the components in this project will be a very important one, because we would like to avoid a situation when the product will be just a kind of closed or in the expert environment, in expert circles or the governmental circles. We really don't want this to. We are talking about the broad circle of the readers. Our task, we visualize to make this product kind of convenient interface and to provide make of it kind of a shell, which would allow an ordinary person to understand the progress of reforms. Like one taxi driver told me today, I can only see the invoices for the communal services to be paid. This is something which I can understand, but nobody tells me anything from the screen of TVs. This is the direct message. On the other hand, within the framework of our project, we already accumulated certain experience of communication with the governmental structures, so we can add some value in order to understand those processes which take place today from the point of view of reforms in specific ministries. And also we can add our vision of those commitments related to reforms which are contained in the association agreement. Recently they presented the instrument of navigation within the association agreement, and which actually specifies a certain deadline demanded of us by our European partners. That's why, from point of view of ideology, we can also propose that this product should look nice and communicated nicely and become an efficient tool for all the concerned parties in our society. So, dear friends and esteemed colleagues, in the nearest future, we're going to coordinate between ourselves and agree upon methodology of the joint product, and this common product will look like the totality of the quantitative assessments, what has been done, as well as a qualitative assessment, comparison of the techniques, methods, and various tools of visualization, or as has been mentioned already, anybody could have a chance just the one immediately understand what's going on in this or another sphere and comprehend when we are going to achieve some results, what results we are going to obtain, because actually we won't have the answer from those who are realizing reforms immediately. I mean, so we would like to involve a big number of experts and the public activists to the process of monitoring, assessment, and progress of promotion reforms in Ukraine. I understand that the word reform is already, we are sick and tired of this word, but it's not because it's a long time since we've been trying to implement reforms, but because for a long time we did not do anything to implement reforms. And now the society demands from the government not to slow down the reforms, as is often the case in the countries. Everybody is waiting the results. We're trying to help each citizens to understand what kind of results we are going to achieve and what we have to do on the local level to obtain that result. Now we are prepared to take your questions. Esteemed colleagues, are there any questions to the speakers? On Civic, Ukrainian Crisis Media Center, you already mentioned the objective of creating this coalition process of monitoring. I'm actually interested in the next step in informing about the results of your work and what format this informing of the society will take place. I'm talking about both society, Ukrainian society, and which is no less important, the international community. In what kind of format you're going to present the information? I'm going to take that question. Initially, we planned to take care of the methodology and accordingly to provide some test study, and then we can switch over to some kind of high quality monitoring to inform the Ukrainian society, first of all, in the following way. Generally speaking, we plan that each year we can publish a big booklet or brochure which will explain what's going on in each of the big reforms to be taking place, to take place in reform. Then we are going to take up some short, informative, let's say, leaflets once a month. Also on monthly basis, we would like to take separate modules of different reforms, and also we are going to set up our platform on our website, which will unite all that information. I believe that our colleagues will talk about the informative, who represent information type of this effort. They are going to give more details about how we're going to present that. Actually, this component is also being discussed now. The only thing which I can tell at this point of time, say what we could add to that, we are going to have very active communication with the media, with the printed, let's say with the newspapers, the magazines, and the mass media, general speaking, regarding this or another aspect of reforms. For example, within the framework of our information campaign, we actually created and launched, provided for the media, the articles or video reviews how such reforms took place in the countries of the Central and Eastern Europe. So here we can provide the similar products based on the experience of reforms which are going to obtain by that time, and accordingly to inform the society regarding the attainments and, on the one hand, and the problems we face. If I may, speaking about the international community, just a few words about that. I can only say that there is a big demand for such information, what stage we reached in implementing reforms, what kind of transformations took place after the revolution of dignity in Ukraine. We already worked out a very big database of the people who are decision makers in the key countries, the European Union, the United States, and other countries, the support of whose is critical to us. Also, we are going to prepare kind of very concentrated, so to say, materials. Those we are not talking about the booklets meant for the Ukrainian society. We are going to have more topical, more thematic booklets, concentrated information. Which is are targeted for international community, the way the reforms are taking place in the law enforcement bodies, in the General Prosecutor's Office, with the reforms which are of much interest to our foreign partners. Also, we are going to arrange a number of different functions and measures in the foreign countries, and starting from this fall, we are going to start a lot of debates and discuss different issues in Berlin, in Vienna, and other cities of Western Europe, and representatives of our coalition will participate in those debates. We will have the opportunity to discuss and to try to understand, to explain this situation, what we achieved, and where we stand now at this specific point of time. Also, we have the big army of the mass media, not only those people who come to Ukraine to write or to report on the events taking place here for the from Moscow, from the neighboring countries, but also from the EU member states. They are very much interested in this information, so we are going to provide this information to them. Thank you. Anybody else? Any questions? The Viktor Pinchuk Foundation. Well, actually, it's a very good initiative which you mentioned, but this means that the governmental people, the officials, government officials, they launched the initiative. You are going not only to monitor, perhaps you'll be a kind of a biggest teaser for our government who are going to take care of those reforms. I have the phone question. Did you have, or have you had any kind of meetings or consultations with the Ukrainian officials? And don't you think that there will be some kind of competition? The National Council reforms, which does not or fails to fulfill one of their tasks in reforms. Nationally, we heard about the current reforms task, whatever. In your Facebook, I heard Ukraine's reforms communication task only 1 week ago. I can see at least 3 structures which have to track the progress of reform. So what kind of cooperation you plan to have with the stakeholders of the reforms? So don't you think that there is a threat for you to become the major critics? At one of the conference in the Baltic States, the West was a bit concerned that more and more public sector undertakes those functions, which our donors actually expect mostly from the officials. Thank you. I will say a few words and then turn the mic to my colleague. Regarding whether we are going to shoulder the extra functions and how we communicate with the officials. We as a public organization, we have to fulfill the function watchdog organization, which actually protects, defends this democracy from the governmental agencies to avoid the totalitarianism which we had under Yanukovych. We decided to unite in order to demonstrate to the external world and inside this country what's going on in Ukraine, and to get rid of those populist statements who say either everything is lost or we are doing everything very well. And our task is to show that everything in Ukraine moves in along the right tracks and the reforms take place in reform. But actually, this is not always the case, and we would like to show that this is not the case. Actually, and the second point why we decided to unite, when we started to take care of the study, who is doing what and how the reform, Ukraine, progressive reforms, Ukraine is being reported, we understand that everyone has his own or her own vision. And the people who read all those instruments, they have to understand what is what. We wanted to unite all those positions into along one channel, so that we visualize or we see the reforms being taken care of by the government, and how we visualize those, to have the same position regarding the whole society, regarding the communication with the governmental bodies and agencies. We represent the initiatives and those public organizations which in their activities constantly contact with the governmental bodies. The government structures knows always what we are doing and what we are going to do. So we are kind of opposition to them, but that doesn't prevent us from communicating with the authorities in order to provide more or less objective assessment regarding what's going on. You were talking about the reforms in Ukraine. And here, at this point of time, I would like to turn the mic to my colleague. And the colleague's matter is that we are not going to do the work of the authorities. The National Council reforms, we are taking care of our internal monitoring reforms. The tools or the instrument which is proposed by the coalition, this is the kind of external public monitoring. And in fact, according to the methodology to be used, they're going to be absolutely different. Though you are talking about the idea, they have to measure the same results, and possibly the civil society will see that the result of the reform must be somewhat different from the results visualized or expected by the government. They are talking about the results of the reform, and we believe that the results of reforms must lead to the changes, transformation in society, in the social relations. And the adoption of the law is not the final result of reform.
That's why I believe that the civil monitoring and geo-monitoring will be like a supplement to and additional to what the government is doing. When the opinion is not coinciding, that's normal. We are CPS and we have a special project on reform monitoring. And from August we expect to have We expect to have a set of roundtables discussing the success of reforms. So this will be like additional bonus having this public consultations. I would like to add, the things are not just white or black. All of us, we have a strong intention to see implementation of reforms of Ukraine. And of course, as a civil society, we do not wish to substitute the state. I believe that having successful experience in participating of coalition formation, in participation in other reforms, I should say that it's very important to get objective, unbiased information and present our vision to the government, saying that this is successful, this works, this is non-successful, and it does not work. Of course, we do not have an intention to fight with the power. We wish to cooperate with them. Of course, we do not mean that if the government disagrees with us, we won't dispute with them. But what I have seen from the monitoring system which the government has presented, I found out that I have a lot of objections, and I believe that my role is to point out to the things with which I disagree, and this will improve decisions, I believe, made by authorities. I'm from Ukraine Crisis Media Center. Speaking about any measuring indicators, about some targets, etc. I think the more different indicators we have, the better it is. And in this context, it is quite good to have some independent set of indicators and criteria. And I believe that any external measuring, any external assessment might be twice useful, because it is something separate from internal assessment. And I think that yesterday's briefing of the National Reform Council showed that they are happy with their indicators, they're happy with their success, and we need to double check whether we should be happy with it, and we should double check it with this attitude of society to the reforming. And there is a good idea, especially now when people have received no new utility bills this month, when they look at them and they are of course unhappy with them. So this should be somehow communicated to the authorities. There should be some feedback from the society. Also, there should be a clear explanation of what's going on? Why do we need to raise tariffs? Why? How we intend to change a situation in our district, in the hospital, in the police precinct, etc. That's why the society should be able to provide feedback and on all those novelties, and this initiative is useful in this context. The monitoring which you mentioned and the monitoring which is carried by National Reform Council is also done by some experts. Whether there could be the conflict of interest between different independent experts, and could we expect that independent experts for the government will report something, then new independent experts for you will present something else. Thank you for the question. The methodology of assessment might be different. Even experts are not uniform. Then there should be question not just experts but target groups at the national, regional, local levels. And at our level, we are able to ensure this richness in the sources providing information. And on the monitoring presentation presented by Center of Reforms, I did not see the sources upon which they based, and there might be that they simply mentioned independent experts, but we cannot be sure. That's why I believe that that questionnaire which we have developed for different stakeholders and target groups will allow to represent different points of view from different groups. As an expert on assessment, I do not see any contradiction that the National Reform Council will consult maybe the same external experts. This will be only a representative sample showing the attitude towards reform, both inside the government and outside the government. Since there are no further questions, I am very grateful to all the participants, and I would like